Alright, so I've got a question for you guys. What makes a VR game a VR game? Because, admittedly, I need your help here. Firmament launched today and I truly don't know what to think about it as a VR user. This game was funded by over 18,000 backers that contributed over $1.4 million back in 2019 on Kickstarter. This was made by the studio that made the Myst series and Obduction, with Obduction being a game where they decided to add in VR support as an afterthought post-launch. Firmament, though, they decided to build it from the ground up for VR, but also with compatibility for mouse and keyboard. And that's not even me misconstruing their words here. They even said the difference is that the game will play in VR the way VR should be played. That's a big claim to deliver on. They've been saying how they made this a full VR game first, but I honestly don't see it. So I might be pretty harsh in this video, but they're marketing this first and foremost as a VR game. That's what people gave their money to 4 years ago. Plain and simple.
Oh, there's a guitar. I can't.
And well, let me tell you how this is a VR game. You see things around you, you point at things, and you move your wrist from side to side. That's it. On paper, that's almost one-to-one no different from playing with a mouse and keyboard. This game is barely even featuring any kind of physical interaction with the world around you, other than using this one-size-fits-all puzzle plug on your arm. You can pick up these lore books to read, but you can't put them down anywhere other than where you got them or take them with you. I mean, why not give us like a book bag to store them in to look back on? And honestly, that's where you guys come in. I need to know, is it still okay to call this a true VR game if being in VR adds nothing but scale and supremely basic motion controls that could be accomplished on a mouse or a joystick? And let me be clear, there's nothing wrong if you enjoy this kind of experience where you take a flat screen game and make it work in VR. That is fine. But what isn't okay to me is when you say you're building a game for VR first, but then make it into a flat screen title that adds nothing by being in virtual reality. And if you've watched any of my videos before, I've always championed scale as being one of the biggest immersion boosters for VR, but when it's the only real thing you get out of the experience, it isn't worth it to me. All I get from playing this game is a lower frame rate, jittery subtitle boxes, a glitchy menu, and clouds that literally hurt my eyes to look at. For real, look at this. The clouds are made incorrect for VR. There are different opacities in each eye, making it a holographic trading card effect that hurts my eyes to look at. And sure, this could be fixed, but it's still there on launch day. As a game in virtual reality, it's very rudimentary. All the objects in this world look like you could interact with them, but nope. They're all static and unable to be touched. Your hand just goes through scenery as well. It's like you're not even in the world. Climbing ladders is very stiff and tedious, with your hands disappearing when you grab each rung. And pretty much every puzzle is just interfaced with what's called this adjunct on your wrist. It's just tough to see them not taking advantage of everything that's possible in VR over the 4 years they developed this.
Wow. Oh man. This reminds me of Dragon Ball Z so much right now.
Anyone, please let me know if this kind of stuff doesn't bother you as a VR user, because I truly wasn't even sure if I should make a first impressions video on this game if all I was going to do was be negative. They made a game that they say is a VR game first, but has compatibility with PC, but it very much still feels like the opposite. When you're walking along, the subtitles don't even track properly when you move, so I just had to turn them off because it was distracting and jittery. Honestly, for the first time in a long time, the experience is better on desktop to me, where I can run it at 3440 by 1440p on epic settings with maxed out FOV. A lot of the puzzles have verticality to them, so in VR you're wrenching your neck back a lot to look at what potential steps you need to take to solve things. And these are huge, tower scale puzzles sometimes, so you have to be ready to be in this for a decent chunk of time while being frustrated by, the puzzle that you're trying to solve. You have to really want to play this game in VR to really commit to it, and you need to have a pretty beefy computer to run it on anything more than low settings. My computer has an i9-9900K and an RTX 3060 Ti, which of course isn't top specs, but my computer is usually sitting around mid-tier specs for VR. With this game, I'm barely scraping by with my computer just sweating trying to keep up. So the minimum and recommended GPU specs on the store page of a GTX 1070 or a 1080 Ti respectively will really only apply to the desktop version. On desktop though, the game on epic quality looks truly amazing. The landscapes are awe-inspiring. Even though exploration games with not really any action or people around aren't really for me, this does immerse me quite a bit on the art design alone. So don't get me wrong, the game looks good. As a VR game though, I'm really unsure of how to perceive it. Is one motion control with your wrist side to side and moving your head enough for a game that's, in their words, built from the ground up for VR? If so, then the game is great. If not, then it might just be better with a mouse and keyboard for you. A ton of these puzzles have mode switches for lowering and raising things, so why didn't they just add in crane controls with both hands to things that we can grab? Vertigo Remastered had a literal crane in VR with full motion controls, and that was made by one person. One of the benefits of VR is being able to use both hands independently of each other while your head can look wherever you want, and this game just fails to take advantage of the platform in any way. If there are two modes for a device, why not give us a two-handed mode in VR? The other hand is just sitting there doing nothing, so why not just give us a two-handed mode for efficiency? All that said, the really cool thing is that your saves aren't dependent on which way you play. So you can play in VR for a bit and then hop over to PC mode on the same save fluidly. So that's pretty cool, and you don't get screwed over in this game by them selling you a separate VR version of the game like a lot of other developers try. I never played the Myst series or Obduction, so if you like those, you're probably gonna like this. For me, the puzzles are based on a lot of back and forth over and over to even attempt certain steps. The story is super cryptic and slow, and the world itself just kind of feels unalive.
We have all that is required.
That's all you had to say?
The puzzles are all usually based on making things inconvenient for you, which leads to a lot of solved puzzles ending with me just glad that it's over instead of a sense of accomplishment or joy. The big thing for me in a puzzle game is that if the only thing stopping me sometimes from progressing is the lack of a jump button to move an extra inch or two, it's not a very good puzzle. Or at the very least, it's not a very believable puzzle. Especially in VR, interactivity is super important, and that also translates to the notion of, if I were here, I could just hop this fence and get there. They don't let you, so it just feels silly that you're taking so many steps all the way around so you could just get from point A to point B sometimes. It just sometimes feels like manufactured inconvenience. Anyways, at the end of the day here, Firmament really is a stunning visual marvel of a game. Don't get me wrong, the story itself isn't presented in an easy to follow way, which some people are gonna like, and I honestly had to read the premise for the game after starting it so I could even have an idea what was going on, but it's made that way intentionally. It's a weird world where everyone is missing for some reason and you're finding out why. It's at the very least intriguing and the intended style of the game. It could be better optimized for VR compatibility, but the scenery of everything really is amazing to look out at. The big thing for me at least is that VR was still an afterthought in this game, even after being its initial pitch to all the backers on Kickstarter. And even if it wasn't, they didn't really push themselves at all to make something that VR exclusively enhances in the puzzle-making sense. So if you're excited for a steampunk version of Myst that's compatible with VR, hop in, you're probably gonna love it. The puzzles truly do take a lot of trial and error and brain power to solve, even if I might have my own qualms with some of the ways they go about it. As for me, I'm probably going to pick up this game a little bit more, but I'm just going to be doing it on desktop, at least until they optimize VR performance a little bit more. Anyways, thank you for listening to me rant here about VR. I upload content every week, so if you want to stick around for that, that'd be cool. If you want to stay up to date or just share a picture of your pet on the Discord, the link for that's down below. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.
You could be really tall in this game if you want. If you set your height right down here, and then you stand up. Or if I maybe like get up with my head on the ground. There we go. Oh, wow, it actually stops me. Ugh. So I could be like 9 feet tall if I want. Oh, excuse me, pardon me.